All right, welcome, kings and queens. Today we are talking Destiny Payton and her relationship with Melody Cherie. Yes, Destiny Payton interviewed with Carlos King about 3 days ago. And let me say about 85% of the interview was about Melody and Destiny. And Destiny, if I were you, I would have a problem with that. I would have a problem with that. Because when you're removed from the show now. And it would have been nice for you to focus on your now, where you are now, what we can come to expect now, who you are now, based off of some things that you've learned, some things that you've gone through. And I feel like we didn't get any of that. What we did get was more promotion, more production, more visibility for Melody Cherie. And honey, we'll take it. We will take it as millimeters. We will take it all day, every day. And see, that's how you get tricked out of your spot. When somebody lures you in to talk about somebody else, if you're really savvy and if you really understand brand recognition, you would have steered. You would have been able to steer, or should have been able to steer and navigate Carlos King in a completely different direction based off of your now, your in the moment, your growth, and where you're headed. Unfortunately, that did not happen. So overall, I'm going to say the interview, it had potential, but it did not give what it needed to give, in my opinion. What are your thoughts, you all? Let's talk about it. For those of you who are just tuned in, or if you're new to the channel, welcome to the palace. I am Queen Sheba. I cover a variety of hot topics specific to reality television, but most importantly, I hone in on the psychological and the behavioral traits of the Black experience.
Subscribe now.
Where do things stand right now between you and Melody?
They stand where they were left a year ago, a little over a year ago.
You two don't talk.
Mm-mm.
Do you miss your friendship with her?
I still have love for Melody Holt, and I really think that time in our lives, we both were really hurting, and we leaned on each other. And they talk about trauma bonding. We leaned on each other through some hard things. But one of the things that I learned about that relationship is that when someone wants to exit your life, you let them do it expeditiously.
That would have been a good place to stop. I still have love and respect for Melody Holt. That's where you could have stopped and taken this interview, taken that ball, and turned this thing upside down when it comes to revamping your reputation, revising your image, your brand, all of that. Simple is underrated. Simple is so underrated. You could have stopped there, especially if you are truly in a good place. No need to say anything else.
And if I could break the fourth wall, to be honest with you, that relationship was sacrificed for a storyline for TV.
You believe that?
I absolutely do.
You believe Melody sacrificed the friendship to have a storyline on Love and Marriage Huntsville?
He asked her, do you miss your relationship with Melody? She could have stopped at, I still have love for Melody. And then she goes on to say, I am going to break the fourth wall. And I feel like Melody sacrificed our relationship for a storyline. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. I'm going to need you to pause and back up and reevaluate your behavior on this show. Because if it's true that your relationship was indeed sacrificed for the show in exchange for a storyline, ma'am, Miss Destiny, you drew first blood. You threw the relationship under the bus first. When you interrupted Melody at one of the highest points in her career, in her life, professionally and personally, post-divorce, and you pulled her aside at her album release party to talk about how she can be a better friend by babysitting your child. Do you not remember? Do you not remember that scene? So if anybody threw it underneath the bus for a storyline, it was you, because you had no marriage. You had no love. You had nothing. So what you did is you established your storyline off the back of your friend's pain, and you took advantage of her. You took advantage of her. Y'all, all you have to do is listen. Okay? All you have to do is listen to this interview. You teamed up with Tisha and Martell, and you turned on this girl. Now, here's the thing. Destiny was never Melody's friend. If you go back and listen to that interview, everything that Destiny talked about that solidified her was through Martell. She talked about her and Martell since they were teenagers. She talked about Martell and LeBaric since they were 6 years old. She never weaved Melody in that story. And you wonder why this lady backed the hell up from you post-divorce? Okay? Because you aligned yourself with Martell. You started coming at her passively, aggressively with Martell. And then you aligned yourself with Letitia. She overheard you talking shit about her in a hotel room. And you really said she threw your storyline, threw your relationship under the bus for a storyline. Girl, it's called accountability. It's called hindsight. I didn't recognize it then, but I can see how that would be a turnoff for a friend. I'm still chummy chum with her ex-husband. See, Melody thought you were her friend, but you knew all along you weren't. You were Martell's friend. And we know that Martell requires everybody around him, from his baby mama to his lovers, his friends, producers, anybody, bloggers that he's aligned with. They have to be anti-Melody. They have to do what he wants them to do. And I know Martell fed you some shit about Melody because he tried to feed me some shit about Melody. See, the difference between you and I pick a side and I stay there. I'm a millimeter, 10 toes down. I am what I am, and I said what I said. And that's how you show up, right? And I'm a viewer of the show. You're a friend. And you couldn't do that. It's that simple. So you straddled the fence. You really didn't straddle the fence, in my opinion. I saw you were Team Martell. You were never Team Melody. And I think by the time Melody realized it, she was like, uh-oh, let me pump my brakes and excuse myself from this table of dysfunction.
Again, stop me when I'm wrong, but that you would reach out and it wasn't reciprocated, right? And that's when she said these things. And then after that reunion, right, I felt like that reunion, I'm like, really good. Like, well, everyone's good. She is alleging that after that reunion is when she heard you and Tisha talk about her. And you said, what, did you have the glass to the door, honey, and you were doing this, child? She felt like she heard things.
Ooh, I'll be needing Carlos to get to the... Carlos, you're going to have to land the plane a little bit sooner. These long-winded ass questions. But anywho, so Destiny, you and Melody are not friends because you chose to remain committed to Martell. You talked about how you knew Martell first and how you and Tisha have become really, really close. Girl, you can't be Melody's friend when you're in bed with those two at that time, during that time. That was one of the toughest moments of her life. So it wouldn't even make sense for y'all to continue the friendship, right? And why are we supposed to be empathetic towards you, right? As viewers and as an audience, because you said, listen, I guess I was going through so much at the time. I felt like I was giving more than enough. But now that I look back, I probably wasn't giving enough. So why is it that we're supposed to be sympathetic to what you were going through and you cannot show the same emotion and capacity for Melody? Does that make sense to y'all? Does that make sense to you? And I think it's actually quite selfish and self-centered and self-absorbed when it comes to you, Destiny. And I think that's where the disconnect comes in between you and the audience. Because it's not that people misunderstand you. Okay? We don't have a misunderstanding. You come across as not approachable, unrelatable. You give off honorary, and it doesn't translate into a buy-in from the audience. You give self-centered, selfish, and you lack a softness that women expect from other women. So it's not a myth. That's what you're projecting. And as a result, you don't have our buy-in. And we deem you as not a good fit for the show. So I just wanted to throw that part in. And back to the Melody part. So Melody's supposed to be understanding of you and your relationship with Martell, right? Because Carlos asked her at one point, he said, Melody says she never heard of you. Destiny, you did a double talk. You say, yes, she knew of me before. But then in the same instance, you said, well, how would you know me? I lived in Atlanta. I've been knowing Martell, but I was a hot girl. He was married. I was single. That would have been inappropriate for me to keep in contact, but he's always been around. Okay, so why'd you decide that it was a good time to rear your ugly head? And I'm not calling her ugly, but I'm just saying, why did you think it was a good time to rear your head while he was filming a show as he's going through a divorce? Why did you think Melody wasn't supposed to feel some kind of way when you came in under the guise of being a friend? You were never a friend. You were always Team Martell. You just tricked Melody and got chummy with her and tried to use her. That's it. And hold on, let me see what she said. Let me get my notes. She said, me and Melody are different. Okay? That Mel likes to do things alone. And that if the producers, she felt like Carlos protects Melody and he doesn't show the audience who the real Melody is. Okay. Who is she? Destiny? Tell us. Because you can't even tell us why your friendship fell apart. So who is she? So I don't buy into that. Because if that's true, you would have been saying, she did this, she did that, here's who she really is. You had nothing substantial to offer. And you said that Melody likes to do things alone, whereas you prefer to bring your friends up with you. Now, girl, you just said you were friends with Martell and you didn't deem it appropriate to infiltrate or grow the friendship while he was married because it would have been inappropriate. So you meet Melody, right? A couple years ago as you come on this show, and now she's supposed to bring you up with her. Y'all, if this ain't given, let me use you, I don't know I don't know what else to say. So you expected Melody to allow you to step on her back so you can come up. All the hard work that she's done, okay? You wanted to ride off of her coattail. She peeped game, so now you mad. Because that's pretty much what you said.
And then the whole thing with the chummy situation, like, let's let that be dead. Like, come on now. I'm probably one of the only female friends Martell got that he ain't.
All right, y'all heard that. She says, I'm probably one of the only female friends that he got that he ain't hit. Basically, that he has not slept with. And, she's real good friends with Boom Boom Belinda. I told y'all, don't play with me. He and Belinda were indeed an item. She just confirmed it. So earlier in the interview, when they first started off, which I'm not going to play that, but Carlos, stop lying to Destiny, talking about that the audience is wanting to know what happened to Destiny. No, we don't. We have not asked you that. No, we don't. You may have gotten 1 or 2 DMs about that, but we've moved on. And Destiny, if you weren't fired, this reminds me of Martell. She comes on and said, you fired me on the reunion and you were hard on me. And he said, well, I should have been. And then she goes, nah, it was contractual. I don't believe you. I don't believe you because he never refuted what you said. He didn't have a rebuttal. He didn't say, no, Destiny, I did not fire you. He didn't say anything. He just sat there. And then you cleaned it up in response to his silence. So I do believe you were fired. I do. But okay. Let's see what else we want to talk about. She did confirm that she's still with Moses. Good for you. However, it seems like it's complicated. They're still in 2 different states, two different places in the world. And I guess they're attempting to navigate through that. But how does that make sense? So if you're in a relationship with Moses and you're in love, how does that make sense for you to be doing a dating show with Belinda if you got a man? And then you refer to Moses as your bestie, which is why I say I question if you have slept with Martell, because you refer to Martell as one of your good best friends, right? And we know you've been with Moses. So I start to see this trend of Destiny referring to men, that she cared about as her best friend. Okay. She pointed out that Carlos, you know me, and you know some of the deep secrets. I don't doubt it. I don't doubt that he does, because Carlos has been very, very verbal and open about fraternizing with his employees, which is why I question, and I feel heavily and very strong that he knew or may have had some knowledge about that revenge P tape, allegedly. Carlos kind of finessed Destiny at one point. Carlos has a very slick tongue. He's a charmer. He says to her at one point, he's like, I love you. And me and the other producer were really fighting hard for you to be on the show. Destiny, Carlos don't give a damn about you. Carlos doesn't care. Carlos, the executive producer, he reminds us that every time. He reminds us of that fact every time he does an interview, every time he opens his mouth, that he's been doing this for years. He's in charge. He calls the shots. He's the executive producer. Why would he have to fight for you to be on the show? A show that he runs, he controls. So Carlos just completely finessed you. He completely finessed you like a snake charmer. He did that. He laced you with compliments, told you how beautiful you are, how much he loves you. He called you a star just to get you to talk. Y'all better quit falling for the okie doke. Okay? Y'all better, don't let that snake charm you in the garden. That's all I'm going to say. So this interview, it told me a lot. It gave me a lot of information. And what I mean by that is, Destiny, you really could have taken this thing and run with it, but you didn't. I was underwhelmed, because if you really are in a different place, then why not nudge Carlos along in the interview to move up to speed regarding where you are currently in your life and who you are now. You didn't talk about any of the projects that you're working on. Nothing. Everything was centered around Melody Cherie, which tells me Melody was your storyline. You were not hers. And Carlos needed Melody to be your storyline. That was the only value you brought to the show, starting trouble with Melody. Okay? The interview, it gave me more insight into why the show appears to be stuck. Okay? It's the producer, the executive producer. It's Carlos. Carlos, your interviews are centered around what used to be. And Carlos, if you keep looking back, you're not moving forward. If you keep looking back, you're not moving forward. You're keeping this girl. You kept this girl throughout this entire interview in a matrix of what used to be between her and Melody. Y'all, I can't make this up. I can't make this up. What are your thoughts? How do you feel about the interview?